Hello and welcome back to the fourth and final installment of Refskeggs streaming class, Administrative Side. In this we're going to cover all the behind the scenes work that actually goes into this that makes the magic happen. And this time you won't get to see my pretty face till the end. So you got asked to do a live stream, what's next? Well, the first thing that you're going to do, if you're still using my setup and my framework, and if it hasn't already been duplicated, that's just what I'm going to go off of. So we're going to go back into the live streaming folder. Now I have it up on G Drive because it's easiest to share. And I'll just go ahead and create a new folder. And we're going to title this one The Fake Event. Now unfortunately I haven't been able to figure out how to copy and duplicate an entire full folder. So instead, we've got to go through and duplicate each individual process. So we're going to duplicate the live stream questionnaire. Put that into the fake event. So who has access is a really important thing. This item will be available to anyone else who can see the fake event. Everyone who can see SA live streaming will lose access to this item unless it's already directly shared with them. This is one of the things that I will be changing a little bit on. Keeping this folder so open is really inviting to start getting a lot of spam, getting people, because you can easily generate this link and kind of mess with it. So keeping your share permissions tight is really important. Especially if some unscrupulous or overly curious people wish to see what awards might be coming up for them, they can potentially find this site and dive into it. So make sure you try to keep your permissions nice and small. Because I am having to do so much sharing out, I'm going to do things a little different. All right, so we have our questionnaire. Then we got to make a copy of our planning sheet. And then our recruitment words. And then our run of show. Take all three of those and drop them into our event. I've gone through and renamed everything. Let's go ahead and open up the questionnaire. So this questionnaire was developed because a lot of times I get asked, how do we even start? Does the event steward come to you? Do you go to them? How does it happen? And the answer is usually both. Both of the cases are how we get started, especially for big kingdom events. I'm usually going to seek them out. But for smaller events, they'll probably come to me. This also kind of tells them what our goals are. We want to be inclusive, we care about the DEI, as well as how do we do it. We utilize StreamYards for all of our live streaming. And it does let you know it may not be the best fit for event depending on goals and activities. If this is the case, we will attempt to support on Zoom or other session as best effort. If you do end up becoming the live streaming officer, you are not necessarily responsible for all of that. Again, that's going to be up to you, up to your position and how it's written. But StreamYards is what I do this for. Their Majesties are what I do this for. So I want to kind of keep that idea in there. We're going to run through this document real quick. Name and date, location, provide Kingdom calendar and Facebook page. Has the request for live streaming been approved by the event steward and the highest ranking nobility in attendance? This is the one that stops things more than anything else. A lot of times we'll get people that want to get live streaming going, but they've not actually talked to the event steward about it. And there might already be another project going, or they might have decided not to. Even if the event steward does want it, the highest ranking nobility in attendance potentially may not. If the king and queen decide that they do not want live streaming at this event, then there will not be live streaming at this event, or it will be a discussion to be had. Next important thing is how many days of activities need to be streamed. If you're looking at more than 2 to 3 days, you really got to be careful on what you're doing. A Friday night court, Saturday, all day, and a little bit Sunday, it's really pushing a team's capabilities. If this is a war and you want 5 whole days, it's not going to happen. Do you want any on-site reporters or studio hosts for the event? Now this one, everyone always says yes, and then when I respond with you need to provide them, things kind of go a little different. Because yes, everyone would love to have an in-studio or a reporter for it, and just wandering around asking the questions, who are you wearing? But really this is trying to draw out the, do we want that John Madden style thing? Do we want our arts and sciences champion going around and interviewing all the competitors? So they're going to say yes, and that probably won't be the priority unless they have a real great idea for it. Something to keep in mind. And the event stewards, we need Facebook name, email, and phone number. We need all of that contact info. And did they request the stream, or is the request coming from elsewhere? Again, we've had a couple of times where someone has requested it and not spoken to the event steward, and we put work into it and ended up having to go away. So if we can not spend that extra effort, we want to. Who is the social media contact for posting to events? Facebook name, email, phone. You shouldn't be trying to do everything. You shouldn't be trying to run their social media. So when you have your recruitment words ready, you should be able to send those over to the team or to that person so that they're posting in their own barony and trying to garner that. Also, you need to get access to it, which will probably be your social media person and or your seneschal needs to get involved. What destinations would you like to broadcast to? Yeah, they may or may not have a YouTube page. They probably want their Facebook page. And are their staff for live streaming already in mind? This is a real great question because a lot of times they do already have people that are willing to help or that they know of. Or sometimes they think they do and come to find out that people are already busy elsewhere. Again, if you're part of the live streaming team, you should be part of the live streaming team, and that should be all your job. You shouldn't also be, head of retinue. Is there any equipment already available? Again, your responses will vary a lot on that. But some people already have all the gear and setup and just need the know-how, just need the StreamYard access to it. What are the major activities at the event? This is a huge one. This is going to determine how long your event is, what kind of gear and setup you're going to need, how many people you're going to need. Really, until you know this, you're not able to start planning. SA activities tend to be packed, so which activities are must stream and which are if possible? Royal courts, kingdom courts are probably going to be must stream. Arts and sciences, maybe not as much. Maybe the Rapier Championships must stream, and it takes precedence over the Arts and Sciences Championship, even if they're both at a kingdom level. These are things you need to work out with your event steward and your the royalty involved. The number of activities we're doing also might mean, do we need to have more than one feed going at the same time? And that's going to determine how many people you need. Having two feeds, one covering championship and another covering another championship, is going to mean double the staff, double the teams, all the extra equipment, most likely. If you do have a kingdom set up, it'll probably only cover one or two devices. You're going to need a lot more for that. So that is one of the more important questions on this list. Is this event indoors or outdoors? Which activities are indoors or outdoors? We just want to get people starting to think about it. People don't know what goes into it. The live streams are still very much so magic. So asking questions like, is there Wi-Fi and how good is it? Can we purchase an additional Wi-Fi connection or SSID? That can get expensive. And if they're not ready for it, if they haven't built a couple $100 extra into the budget, that can make or break the event, or that can make or break the live streaming. If we have no Wi-Fi, no cell phone coverage, there's not a whole lot we can do. Power outlets, again, this affects your gear build out. Is the site public or private? Can we set up the gear early? Do we have to worry about someone walking off with it? How early can we be set up? Will it need to be struck at any point? Which, for those of you that don't know, struck means torn down and reset, or moved or shifted, etc. Do we have any ambient noise concerns? Are we right next to a cement plant? These are kind of things that we want to know. Outdoor activities, same kind of thing. How early can we set up? Especially, is there any ambient noise concerns? Are we right next to a trainway? Is there a shelter we can use? A lot of this gear is powered by electricity. What happens when it rains? In Ontario, it's always going to rain. What's the expected weather temperature, including wind? If there's a lot of wind, we need to make sure that all of our gear has sandbags and is weighted down. If it's cold or hot, that's going to affect how our stuff operates. It'll drain batteries quicker or it'll overheat things faster. We need to make sure we bring umbrellas to shade the laptops so they don't get baked in 120-degree heat. Most events, especially large events, do have a contingency plan. Especially noble or royalty ones, so like crowns and coronets, will have a plan in place of, if we start getting lightning storms, how do we deal with this? How do we keep fighting and choose our successors? Is there a location we can get to? We want to be aware of that contingency plan so we can shift as well. Martial activities, how many ranges, Eric's, what types of fighting, championship, processional. This will be good if you need to start getting fighter cards. One spot or multiple locations. Stormblade is an in the woods kind of little hut battle and a tournament Eric style battle, so we'd have two locations. If we want to cover it, that's going to get real hard. Arts and sciences, how many rooms or entrance will we have? Is this a tournament or a championship? Will there be bardic? Again, different considerations for gear and reporters and on-site. Court. Now, court is, a purely virtual court, which we've discussed in some of the other things. Or will it be an in-person court? How many courts and when? We have 4 different levels of royalty or 4 different sets of royalty there. Are they all holding court or only some of them? That means 4 times the work on court coordination. How many people are likely to be seated? Do we need to worry about catching 15 different thrones up top, or do we only care about 4? Is this going to be up on a stage? That will affect the kind of equipment that we need to hide and disguise. Maybe we can run cords underneath the whole thing, and that makes our life a ton easier. Is there a backdrop or anything behind the thrones? This is really important, especially for on tier. We have that beautiful overhang that was made by Sir Matthias Bane, and it's great because we can hide our cameras in there super, super nice and easy, run the cord down. I love it. But that's the thing that we want to be aware of. Will it need to be a 2-way court? This is definitely if it's a little bit more virtual or semi-virtual, like the hybrid event that I did at my house where we had His Majesty remote, Her Majesty on site, and about a dozen other people on site, and then a bunch of the awardees were off site. So we need to make sure it was 2-way, which meant we needed a TV so that they could see what was going on the screen, and they could also hear and make sure that what they were hearing wasn't being picked up by their mic. For courts, are there any elevations planned? This is a real important one. Elevations tend to mean ceremonies, so we want to make sure we're ready to capture those, contact the people, let them know where the right places to stand are. If there's any big things happening, we want to be able to capture that. If there's a ceremony. Also, are there any elevations that's going to kind of let us know, do we need to have buffet warnings? And who will be the people holding court? Because we need to know, especially if you're like me and you're in a very large kingdom. I am one person and I do not know every seated baron, baroness, prince, principality, all of that. So their names, their Facebook names, SCA names, and their court coordinators, because I don't need to work with them as much as I need to work with the court coordinator. So after we send over the questionnaire to whoever requested it from us, and if you know who the event steward is and all of that, send it over to them as well. Next up, you need to create a chat with the royalty, event steward, and court coordinators. We want to make sure this actually should happen. We want to confirm what we should be streaming. You are going to need to start asking the court coordinator and getting an awards list and a court docket. All these events that we can get ahead of time make life so much easier. We can pre-plan. Usually I won't start bugging them until about a week out, or maybe a little bit more than that, and ask for a general idea, because there are going to be a lot of changes. So then 2 days out is when you ask again, confirm this is what we had, does this still look good? And day of or day before, we're going to ask, okay, have there been any changes? Did somebody show up that you weren't expecting to be there, and now we can give them something? We also want to get contact info for the scribe so we can get those beautiful pictures of all the scrolls and awards. Now the real fun part, the struggle one, recruiting the team and gear. We do have a recruitment words template. I've used this in the past. Feel free to change it as you need. And it talks about the positions that we need for both on-site and off-site, who to reach out to, put your contact name in there. And then start sharing at the Bronio level, the Kingdom level, all the associated levels. If you have a live streaming group, start passing it out to them, so utilize your current pool of resources. If royalty, the king and queen, will post in their own Pell groups, that's a great way of doing it. Or if it's a fighting event, post in the chivalry groups. You can get a lot of really good responses from there. And as you start getting people and technology, keep your planning document updated. So this is the planning sheet that I have. It's got our staff, Facebook name, SCA name, phone number, their role, and their availability. Please note that availability may also change, but if they need to go up for court, we need to know that. If their consort is fighting, we need to be aware of that as well. If they're only available Saturday morning, not Saturday night. It's just nice to ask that stuff ahead of time so you don't get blindsided. And we do have scheduled meetings. I just like keeping this up here. If people are like, oh, did we have that meeting? I can check in, like, here's our tech rehearsal, here's our final tech rehearsal, here's the first event where we all kind of talk about things. Equipment. This is my current equipment. Again, the goal for this is to identify the primary devices being used. We don't need every piece of cable, every connector, everything like that. We don't necessarily need all that. It's nice, especially if you don't have a kit you're already working off of. But owner, operator, so we can kind of identify the position, notes, tested and prepared. So was it tested with all the gear? Make sure everything is tested first. And then was it prepared for a laptop? Did we give it a password that everyone knows, etc.? And tasks are just still the outstanding task we have to do. Verify Wi-Fi, get the layout of the hotel, send recruitment words to king and queen, source equipment. These are some very basic generic ones. And as you start meeting and coming up with these questions, you'll get more and more of them. Alright, create a chat with producers, mods, and backups, just so you're all on the same page. If anything changes, everyone knows. You can start talking to each other. Do the same with all of your on-site crew. Schedule meetings with the crew to showcase the platform. Hopefully as we do this more and more and people become more familiar with it, we won't need to do it as often. This honestly takes up a lot of my time right now because it's an hour and a half for every time we meet with an event steward. Every time someone offers to help, I have to show them this platform all over again. That's part of the reason why I'm making this tutorial series, so I can just send that to them and it'll cut a decent amount of time out. So schedule a meeting once gear has been established for tech rehearsal. Usually about a week out I'll do this, especially if we have a decent amount of semi-known gear. We just want to make sure everything works. There's no hiccups, there's no GoPros don't work on Windows 11 issues we find out. My cable is bad and I don't have time to order another one from Amazon. Things to keep in mind. Alright, schedule an event staff meeting and participants to go over your needs. Again, this is not something a lot of people know about. Event stewards really don't even know how to deal with this most of the time. Summit's Coronet asked me in the meeting for Kingdom Arts and Sciences to go over it. We don't have a formal process. Odds are good you probably won't have a formal process. So just get a meeting with everybody together and go, this is it. Review your questionnaire document with them and say, so you want this, that means this. Are we talking about the same thing? Provide opt-out words for site copy. I do have the words that we use for 12th Night listed at the end of this document. If you're not non-tier, please double check with your Seneschal and your Kingdom laws and all that, because your words may need to be different. But because site copy is something we physically have to print, and putting this in here means we don't have to do a lot of other work, get it to them as soon as possible. Make sure all your mods, producers, all your remote team have access to StreamYard. I put this so far in the beginning, even though they don't need it till the very end, because I want them to get familiar with it. If they've not used it before, opening up a test studio and just letting them play around in for the week leading up makes them so much more confident. If you can even just create a random throwaway page where they can just play with streaming live content to it, let them do that too. Also, if you're trying to get 5 people in and access within the same 30-minute span, it's going to be hard because you're going to get conflicting codes. Ensure StreamYard has all needed access to Facebook and YouTube. A lot of times that process goes through the social media officer to the Seneschal, then back to the social media officer. YouTube takes, up to 48 hours to get. I still struggle trying to connect in YouTube's. So get that done as soon as you can. Facebook limits you to only posting a week in advance, so within a week is usually a good idea. Build out your StreamYard branding. Again, we are, yellow and white or an argent. So that's all of our stuff. That's how it's branded. But if you're doing a different event or a different barony, start building out that branding. Get your technical display. Ask the coronets or the royalty, what picture do you want me to use for this? Have a couple already ready. Or like, if you have one in mind, here you go. So yeah, create the link 1 week out. Make sure the links have references to all their events. And this seems weird, but make sure that you have both the Facebook and the YouTube links on there. I've already talked about why watching YouTube on a big TV is easier than Facebook. But engage with the social media officer team to share all the links. You may not have all the needed access and you shouldn't be doing all the work. Contact your social media team and be like, start distributing. Start letting everyone know. We should not be getting day out questions on where are the available links. So virtual courts are a little bit different. You want to get the list of awardees as soon as possible. Now, awardees is not the right word for that. It is the word that I use, mostly because in this very limited instance, it's kind of what we're looking at. What we recommend doing is having the nobility call forth all these people. Your presence is requested at this date, at this time. Here's the list of people. Please reach out to the court technomancer, whoever that happens to be or whoever happens to be running it, and be ready for a class at a week out. Why I like doing that is because if we give them a pre-scheduled time, they're more likely to say yes or no, I can't make that. If you say, what's good for you? You're going to get 15 different answers and 5 of them are going to be, I don't know, anything works, and then half of those won't be true. So get a scheduled time, and then if people start saying, no, I can't make it, set up another one a couple days later, or one that will work, and then invite all the other people to that one, and just slowly kind of start weeding it away. Test run all the awardees through connecting and troubleshooting as needed. Again, you're going to invite them in, not as admins, just invite them in, explain to them the difference between in studio and in stream, and how you're going to bring them in, how it's going to work if you need to do different waves. So if you are on wave 1, once you've been called in, you get your, and your time is up, please leave the studio, open the award while you're on screen, troubleshoot any camera issues or Wi-Fi problems. Once you do have a vague idea of the court docket, let them know what order they're going to be called in. Let them know who the previous person is as well. I find that's really helpful, especially if you can do, like, with all of them on screen going, it's person 1, person 2, person 3, person 4, all through 10. That way they know who to start looking out for. It's really great if you're doing these virtual courts and you mail out the awards, have them open it up on screen. It looks really cool. It builds a lot of great interaction. You get to see their fun faces. And again, something to be aware of, the limitations of StreamYard on participants. Usually I do 7 because I expect there's going to be 2 to 3 producers and the main nobility. So break them up into waves if you need to. Make sure your run a show lists what each wave is. And feel free to kick people off if they don't leave after their turn. Some people might just get caught up in watching. Alright, fighting. Try to get GoPros. They are really good for fighting. Their high frame rate captures the fight so much better, but we've already discussed all the downsides to them. Talk to the event steward and the list stewards and get a pre-registered fighter list. Keep checking back and getting that updated, but the sooner you get that list, the further out you can start building the fighter cards, which are really, really cool. I showed those in one of the previous videos as well. But it just makes your life easier. You're not trying to do it last minute. When you do have 3 or 4 last minute entrants, you're only doing those instead of all of them. Create fighter cards using the pre-reg list and update as you go. And again, this is probably something that should be sent out to somebody, maybe even the list person if they're up for it. Contact list to get order of processional. That makes using your slideshow so much easier if you know the order they're going to be in. especially because if the order does change, unless it's a complete front to back, back to front, it's going to get real funky real fast trying to catch up to everything. Make sure you have the names, both the fancy and the common name, and the slide number that they are on. Contact list for updated shield board. This is a really unique one. When you're doing lists, don't rely on your list person to update you. It's too much work for them. They already have their hands full. I try to get a person that is not actually part of my operator team, that their whole job is just taking pictures of lists, letting me know what fighter is up. Even better if that person sending the picture can send to the social media officer as well so they can post up. On the stream, don't try to post all the different photos and things. That's kind of something that the social media officer can do, but it's nice to know the round counters, who's up, who's down. And then as we start getting closer, you can say things like, "Sir, so-and-so is going to this fight clean," and it just helps build that engagement. Also, if you don't have a person, reach out to your social media officer. Odds are good they might have the person because they're already thinking of doing the same thing. Make banners for each fighter and consort. It's probably a lot of extra work if you're already doing the fighter cards. However, when you start getting into the semis and when you get to that break before you start getting into the semis, that's when you want to do it. Viscount, etc. Fighting for Viscount, etc. Just keep those pre-ready. It makes a nice little moment. They probably do a little bit of extra pageantry. Make banners for round counters if you can, semifinals, finals. And then when you get closer into the end, you can start using the common name of Duke A versus Duke B, or just A versus B, final round, semifinal round. And let them know the round style, 3 out of 5, round robin, single elimination. Here's a real cool one. Work with the social media officer to create hype, especially for crowns. October Crown was amazing because we had people painting their faces with heraldic colors and sharing their watch parties. It basically became a Super Bowl event of sorts, and that's really what we want. If we can get those fighter cards out there and getting posted on social media early, people can start making little pennants with, just the little kid pennants that we have all the children make all the time. They're great. They give you that awesome feeling of being there. You can send the pictures when the people win with you and supporting them. Again, it's that engagement and that hype train that is really cool. All right, we are cruising. Royal changeovers. This was a really awesome thing that we ended up doing for 12th night when Sven and Rifkin stepped up, because we had fires and earthquakes and mudslides and tornado, just every possible bad thing you can imagine on top of the pandemic. So many of the people that mean so much to them were unable to show up. And so I'd gotten the idea of, let's try and get some words. So like the Queen's sister was unable to be there, so I asked her first, do you have some words and encouragement you want to send to your sister? And she's like, that's a brilliant idea. Let me ask some other people too. And started getting the extended family, the extended SCA family that I didn't know about. So we were getting videos in, we were getting wonderful words that we would put up on essentially the blank fighter cards, but with their names and the photos and everything they're saying and all the words of encouragement. And it's really great. And Abacol started to do it where they request the words from from the other kings and queens. And I think it's an awesome idea. It helps make our kingdoms a little bit bigger and creates that bond with the other kingdoms as well. All right, create a run a show and keep it updated. So the run a show is how you kind of live and breathe. It's how everyone knows what's happening and what they're supposed to be doing when. So live stream Friday, let's say this is Friday. This was actually a 3-page event from Queen's Arts and Sciences, but I'm using it as a good example because I've been given permission. All of these awards went out, so we're good. You have your start time, your setup. What time do we expect people to be there? What time, if we go live at 7, I want people there at 5:30. 5-10 minutes before we go live, 4-minute duration, final warning in places, brief overlay, standby overlay. I'm going to get my screen content ready to go. Cues, my countdown to live, optional background music. 7 p.m. go live. Stand by. Court will begin shortly banner. We are live banner. 30-second countdown video. And again, going live at 7 p.m. isn't exactly important. It's okay if the audience sees the countdown timer too. Bullying and harassment policy, so we don't forget, it's on that list. Court processional. Now I know none of these things ever go when they're supposed to, but if we put it in, we get a vague idea of how this is supposed to go. On-site identifies court processional begins. Shotgun mic, background music optional. And keep banners if court hasn't started. Leaving camera views is up is okay. It lets people know that they're not missing anything. We're not asleep at the switch. Last chance to go live. So Facebook will shut down and delete the links if you do not go live by 10 minutes after. What that normally means is in the past we've gone live at 7 minutes after the start time. And if that means we're still troubleshooting live. It's unfortunate, but people understand that. Now, last time, I don't know if this is a new feature, one I've never noticed, we were actually able to, even minutes after the start time, push back the start time. So if we had to start at 9 and it was 9:05 and we weren't ready, we can just set it for 9:20. This is really great for evening courts, being able to push them back that little bit of extra without having to worry about 30 more minutes of dead air. Court tasks of undetermined time. Don't even try to catch all of that. If you have vague ideas of events, throw them in there. But words from royalty. Court callbacks. This was me trying to be overly descriptive. You probably won't need all this. Maybe you will. It depends on you. So first one. So the person, their award, and their scroll position within the slide. So scroll 1 and 2. So main shot, detail shot. Next. This was an officer changeover. We have, just kind of goes down. This one didn't have a scroll, so we just want to make sure that we, put the banner on there. Some of these we expect to have scrolls and just haven't gotten them yet. You can even put stuff like largesse and when the other courts open. So we have a baronial court open in the middle of the royal court. If you have a big event or something, you want all of it listed out here so that people know exactly what's going on. When does processional start? When does the court start? When does the fighting start? When's the changeover happen? All of that. One of the things I do like to do, if you have any, elevations, vigils, etc., highlight those. A, we want to take extra care to make sure all of our gear is working by then. B, we want to take extra care to make sure we don't accidentally move our slide positions. But this is your run of show. This is how everyone knows what they need to do when they need to do it. And feel free to put in administrative stuff. If, backup producer A has to leave at 7, put that in there, and then backup producer B knows that they need to jump in. So I have an example of how we do the slides. When you're sharing out the screen, I found that going portrait mode on PowerPoint slides gives you the most real estate taken up and being used. Every other method I've tried and played around with doesn't give us as big of an image with as good use of space. For on tier, I've got our yellow and our black background, and then I'll just copy it, make a duplicate, and then add in the next image. Again, you should have gotten all of these from the court scribes, and you'll know your list from your court coordinator. And we've got the awesome, really cool, nice shot, and then we go down for the little bit more detailed shot, which shows off the artist's work and also gives us a little bit of a buffer so we don't accidentally go on to the next one. I'm still trying to find a good way of making sure we talk about who the artist and illustrator were. In our case, a lot of time it's the same person. It's the person giving me all the scrolls, but very, very often it's not. We've started doing more banners. In addition, normally when we did the scrolls, I wouldn't do a banner, but it's starting to change now that I have more people backing me up. So we might start putting who created everything on the slide and then use the banner to talk about what the award was. Remember, if you're updating any of this, make sure you update your run of show. If you have to add something in last minute, even though it's going sooner on the court docket, kind of highlight in the run of show, like, hey, this isn't slide 5-6 as you expect, this is slide 35 and 36. Fighter cards, the same thing. Make sure they're in a spot everyone can get. I do like to upload them into the folder so that if you go down, your extra producers can get access to them. Make sure they're uploaded into the studio. Double check once they're in the studio that they're functioning, nothing went sideways, nothing went weird. That applies to awards and the fighter cards. Banners, you always want to have just that same retinue of banners. They will stay and change with you between the studios, so Joyous Noise Core will start shortly. Bowling Warning, Long Live Blank and Blank, Long Live the Kingdom, Content Warning Buffett, SMO engagement, so please share photos using hashtag, etc. Extras such as banners for your musicians and their songs, so the name and who they are. They're really good if you're going to use that and you're having someone else running it. So if I'm doing the playlist and my backup's doing the banners, make sure we're both going in the same order, or I'm updating them with what that is. So this is A song, not B song. I try to make the awardees banners in order. I try to do different folders for each and every court. Make sure all your people know where all the different folders are. So Royal Court versus Verona Court will have different order, or different folders, and then orders. So elevations, offers, vigils will have their own. Delegate duties to your team. You want to start seeing who can take care of all this stuff. Even the pre-work, who should be creating the fighter cards, who should be creating the awards, who's tracking down and liaising with court. You don't have to take on everything, and sometimes it's best if you don't. And then also start talking about, okay, who's up for the longer days? Can you only sit for 4 or 5 hours? Do you need relief? What shifts are you up for? What are the duties you're going to take care of as backup or as primary producer? When do you need to step away? And again, we've talked about the using the same vernacular. Final tech rehearsal. Do this on site if you can, if not a few days before. Just do that final tech rehearsal. Make sure all of your gear works, all of your operators know how to operate all the gear. And the final meeting with the team can happen at the same time. You can even bring in some of the event stewards too, if they're not crazy busy. What time does everyone get on site? Good question. When is setup and dress rehearsal? When do we go live? What are our final priorities? Do we have any outstanding issues? And then last but not least, it's showtime. So, a couple of quick things are opt in and out. And again, this is what we use for 12th night. You need to change it on your own. The buffet. If you don't use the buffet, awesome. Congrats to you. If you do use a buffet, make sure you have a content warning. If you can think of anything else you might need a content warning for, go ahead and get that put in there. Do not forget care and feeding of your team. It is so important. They are dedicating so much time and so much effort. Make sure they have stuff in place. Make sure they have people caring for them. Make sure they're not trying to wrangle 4 children at the same time as doing this. And if they haven't taken a break in 4 or 5 hours, go make them. And don't forget this for yourself. So I do have a feedback form. That does not always get put into the events. It's usually just right here. I will actually download and send this over Messenger, so I'm not sharing a link that everyone's going to change, because I want this information to be sent back to me privately. If we discover that the on-site operator was literally falling asleep at the switch and refused to do anything, like, we need to know that information so that we can plan for it and keep them off of there. And I don't want anyone to feel bad about bringing that up in front of someone. Lastly, a couple of quick things. A drop dead producer, someone you know that is out of your area and out of the affected area that would be able to step in if absolutely needed. Because StreamYard will keep running even if I lost power as producer, having somebody who is outside of my threatened zone via earthquake, whatever, is a really good idea. They can kind of just jump in real quick, even if it just limps along or throws up the technical banner of there's a problem. I know it's not the biggest concern if there's an earthquake, but you get the point. A gate liaison. People love knowing the numbers for gate. Having a gate liaison is a great way of getting that. And an event staff liaison. Instead of bugging the event steward themselves, see if they have a secondary. See if they've got someone they're working closely with. Because there are going to be changes that we need to know. When are you changing over this? Where are you going when you shift court? Where is the first Eric going to be? Is the final fight going to be done in front of the thrones? Is it going to be done in front of the first Eric? Etc. List and shield board. Sony can keep you updated on what's going on. We talked about this a little bit earlier. This is extra good if they're the ones that can feed you the, it's blank versus blank, and blank was just victorious. Great information, just start throwing in the comments. And that's it. That's everything I know. I want to thank you all for joining me with this and supporting live streaming in Ontario and throughout the known world as much as you have. This means a great deal to me. I am one of those people that can't go out until COVID gets a lot better. So being able to be a part of this meant a lot, and I know it means so much to so many others as well. So thank you for bearing with me. I hope to keep kind of updating these as things go on, as I learn more, as my teams learn more and grow and get better and do awesome things and think of stuff I never would have. I want to keep making sure that information gets out there. So all of my documentation, both the notes that I've been using to create the class, are available. They function as a good checklist. All my videos are available. All of my everything, the run of shows I use, the planning events, the summaries. I want all that information to be available and out there. My goal is that this is something that can be brought up to society level and handed off to other kingdoms that are curious on how do we do this? How do we, how do we join the cool kids club of everyone doing live streaming? And I want to say as well that this is one way of doing it. My priorities were simplicity and ease of use. There are a lot of people out there doing just some beautiful, amazing things with tech and gear that's way beyond us. And last, I want to thank everyone that helped make this possible. First and foremost is my amazing and lovely wife, her ladyship Kata. There have been a lot of long nights and a lot of long days in this chair running events, and she's kept me fed and sane, and normally sits right over there, and I get a bounce off of her and ask her eye on things. And it's been incredible and wonderful, and thank you so much. I love you. Also, a huge thank you to the Sisters Interview. They're the ones that got this ball rolling. They were asked to film October Crown and kind of went from there. And that is my Laurel Ashoxi. She is an amazing, wonderful, wonderful person, and her sister, Queen Rifkin, right now. And that also really helped, having someone who understood the value and importance of this, then stepping up and taking the throne, because they've been running Sisters Interview for a year, 2 years, so they were very involved in the ESCA. And then I want to thank all the other people, the dozens upon dozens of support staff I've had to make this function and viable, because literally I could not do this without you. I tried once, it was terrible. So thank you to everyone that's watching these videos to try to learn how to help, to try to learn how to do this, or even know what this is all about. Thank you so much, and this is Refskeggs.